Hello and welcome to the Leader Breeder podcast with myself and your host, Aidan Jeffery. Leader Breeder podcast is a leadership podcast dedicated to helping you discover and develop your leadership voice in your life, career, ministry, and business. This month's episode, February episode, talking about episode 32 already, and the title of our message today, Output versus Outcome, the key to effective leadership. I want us to have a look at this concept of outputs versus outcomes, and I've been dealing with this internally in the church, in my own personal life, and been going through this discussion, looking at a few thoughts from the book Measure What Matters by John Doerr, as well as Who Does What by When, and I'll refer those books to you a little bit later. But come on, super excited to be with you this month. It's going to be an amazing episode today, and we want to become more streamlined. We want to become more effective in everything we do in our life, career, our ministry, our business, whatever it is. So come on, let's get straight into episode 32. I'll see you on the other side of this. Well, episode 32 already, can you believe it? Our February episode. And like I said in the introduction, I want to talk to us a little bit this month about a concept called about the thought process of outputs versus outcomes. Now, like I said, I've been busy in the church, in our own organization, starting out the year. You know, everyone sets goals, everyone wants to achieve things, but there is a difference between an output culture and an outcomes culture. And some of the greatest organizations, the most successful multi-billion-dollar companies internationally, are using a tool called OKRs, or Objectives and Key Results. Now, it's a very vast and wide subject range, so I don't expect us to get into too much detail today. What I want to do today in this month's episode, I want to lay a foundation for you to stimulate some thought, not just in your business or your career, in your personal life as well. You know, so often we get caught up in this output culture, busy, but can we measure what the outcome is? Can we measure that there is a certain deadline by a certain time? And this is what changes the game when you talk about outputs versus outcomes. So let me read you a bit of a definition here. Output culture. This is focused on tasks and output culture, deliverables and production metrics. It emphasizes what has been produced. Example, a number of features developed or reports generated or meetings held. All of us fall into this trap. We look busy. I'm not saying you're not busy, but we have a meeting and we feel as if we've accomplished something, but that merely is an output. And the primary concern is completion of tasks rather than impact of those tasks. Now, this can lead to a culture where the volume of work is prioritized over the value. So what is the difference between an outcome and an output? Output culture versus an outcomes culture is what? Is the volume of work is prioritized over the value. And I found in my many years of ministry now, 20 years, we're celebrating 20 years this month in Cape Town, by God's grace and His goodness and His sustaining grace, we've managed to, pioneer the work and do the work in Cape Town. And it's been an amazing 20 years. But I've learned and seen over the 20 years times when we've looked busy, acted busy, and are busy because, you're busy with outputs, you're busy with meetings, you're busy with activities, you're busy even sometimes strategizing. And sometimes if you're an entrepreneur listening to this today, you're going to maybe relate with some of these things, or a pastor of a church. You're going to relate to some of these things today, because what causes or what stifles some of the growth in an organization? Why aren't we seeing a result? Why aren't we seeing something move? Why aren't we seeing more of? Why aren't we seeing an increase of? And very often it's because we all get caught up in this culture of output versus outcome. Now, what is an outcome culture? Well, you have the emphasis on the results or the effects of the work done. So we have a meeting, but what is the outcome? What's the result? What can we measure? What that meeting either produced in the natural, or what, I'm not saying it has to produce every time, or what it will produce. Will the meeting that you've had this last week, can we measure something in a week from now, 2 weeks, 2 days, whatever the discussion point is in the meeting? But it's the emphasis is on the result or the effects of the work done, particularly in terms of customer behavior, change, or business impact. An outcome culture asks, What business or customer benefits result from our work? It encourages teams to think about the end goal, aligning activities with strategic objectives that drive value. Now, a lot of clever words on a piece of paper. How do we practically do this in the natural? And I want to, like I said, this month's episode for me, because I'm busy with this in my own world, I want to really just stimulate some thought in you today. If you're a businessman and you're frustrated with that same old adage of, wow, we're so blessed with so much work, but we can't keep up with all the work, or we snowed under all the workload, or we're not getting to everything, or I'm burnt out, or I'm exhausted, or I've got no time for my family, I've got no time for and very often it's because we're caught up in this output culture. So a few examples, the difference, give you a few, and there's many, but I'm going to give you just a few examples, one or two, of the difference between looking at what is an output versus an outcome. Now, an output, launching a new website feature, for example. So we're going to launch a new website feature. Well, we can measure that because there's an output. What is the effect of that new feature? Well, that's the outcome. And very often we don't ask that question. Well, we're hoping it's going to produce something, but we're not really sure. Another one is, for example, conducting 10 customer service training sessions. Busy. We trained 10 customers, or we had 10 customer training sessions, and we felt fulfilled. We got a bunch of people into a room. We took some photographs. We posted some stuff on social media. But what's the effect of it? And this is where we're going to shift that mindset today. Another one is developing 5 new marketing campaigns. So you can use many examples. I had in the church, for example, I had leadership training, or in our world, I had a new members orientation class, so what about it? That's an output. And thank you for your output. Thank you for doing that. We appreciate that. But what do we want to measure by that? Is it because as a result of that NMO, that new members orientation, we had 15 more people serve in ministries by the end of quarter 1? Well, now we're starting to shift from an output culture, just having the NMO, versus actually measuring the impact and the effect of that in a long-term basis. It could be over 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it might be. Another one versus, I read you the outputs earlier. Let's look at outcomes. Increasing website conversion rates by 20%. Now we're starting to see this shift and this change. It's a measurable deadline or an outcome with a date and a time. And this is what the OKR culture starts to bring in. So objectives. And that is how we want to achieve that. That's our main objective. And the following key results. Now, the books tell us, and the research shows 2 to 3 key results per objective, and you'll start to move in this direction. So notice again, enhancing customer satisfaction scores by 15%. So there is an objective, there is a result we want, but by how much and by when? Well, by the end of the quarter, but by 15%. Now I can measure, did that launching of the new website feature, did it enhance customer satisfaction by 15%? I can actually measure something. Now I'm starting to move from an output base only into an outcome base. Or the third example is achieving a 30% increase in customer retention due to better service. So now I have to work on the percentage, I have to work on the actual thing, the customer retention, and I have to offer better service. And what does that mean? Well, now it stimulates a whole new form of conversation. So when we're talking about OKRs, or objectives and key results, we're talking about creating value through behavioral change. Now, this is where I want you to see the shift. So in the book, Who Does What by When or by How Much, and I'll put the links, like I said, into the descriptions below. But if you're having a look at the book, Who Does What by How Much, this was a shift that I started to see in my own world. So, and I myself am guilty of this included. So I'm not saying the staff are doing this and I'm not doing this, vice versa. But what objectives and key results does, it brings everybody into a alignment. So we, as a church in Cape Town, have got OKRs, objectives and key results, and our main objective, for example, which then aligns with our vision, mission, and mandate statement of CRC. For example, our vision is to build one church in many locations. Our mandate is to win the lost at any cost, and our mission is to mend the nets the catch will be great. So to enhance and encompass those three things, that's an objective. That's and we can have outputs on that. We can have Sunday services. There's many things we can sort of say we're busy with. Sunday services are outputs. Monday meetings are outputs. Bringing buses to church for the students are outputs. And all those are needed, but what is the outcome we want to achieve from the Sunday service? Is it amount of salvations? Is it attendances? So we have to start thinking a little bit further than just saying, I want to do this thing in order to, have church. As a business owner, you might say, we want to increase our turnover in our company by, let's say, 500,000 by the end of quarter 2. Now, immediately that stimulates a different question. Well, what must we do to get an additional 500,000 sales growth by the end of the quarter? So what does that take? Now we're starting to talk about, who myself as the owner of the company or the pastor does what by when. Also, who, the customer, must do what by when. So in other words, we have to change behaviors of our clients or our members in order to achieve a result. Well, that's common sense, you might say. So if we're having a look at behavior change, that is what OKRs are. That's what outputs versus outcomes are. Outputs are our behavior is to have a meeting. But an outcomes-based is we must, through that meeting, result in changing the behavior of either the customer we are doing, the service we're delivering, or the member that's in the church in order to then achieve a result. So as I go along, I'm going to break this down for us, line by line to get a better understanding. And I want you to listen to what I'm saying today, because as a business owner, very often we say, well, we need more sales. Well, right, that's a good intention. It's a good thing to have. We need to increase our turnover. Good. We need to increase our income. Good. We need to increase our attendances. It's a noble, endeavor, and it's not wrong to say that. But by how much and by when? So, well, we want to increase our attendances by 200 people by June this year. All right. Now, you've made that clearer, so we've gone from a possible output. It all starts with an output, but the outcome we want of this output of having a church service. So we want to have church services on Sundays, as we do, but we want to increase the attendance. The attendances, let's say in the morning service by 200, and let's say in the evening services by 200. Let's just assume that's what we want to achieve. Now, the question we have to ask further to go from an output mindset only, because most people feel validated or feel vindicated because they had what they seem to be a successful service. They opened a building, they got the band there, the people arrived, they sang some songs, they heard a sermon, some people got saved, maybe none got saved, maybe a few got saved, and we went home and we felt we had a great Sunday. Now, nothing wrong with that. But now we find ourselves 6 months later, we're at the same place, going through the same motions, and we're not getting any different results. And insanity is, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. But now if we start to say, let's start to move from an output base of having a Sunday service with attendances and a band and a sermon and, invite into accepting Christ and going home. Let's assume that's the basic outline of a service. If we start to add it to an outcomes-based, now we want to have a church service, but we want to increase our attendances by 200 people, and we want to achieve this growth spurt by the end of June. All right? Now we're changing the conversation. So although we are still having church, but the second Sunday, the third Sunday, we're going, well, the numbers haven't changed. Remember, what's the outcome? We want to increase the attendance by 200. So because we've been specific and we've been detailed and we've been time-bound with a date and a time by the end of June, and we want to make it by 200, so it's a number and a date, or a date and a number, whichever way you want to lay it out. Now we start to say, what's causing us, therefore, not to have any growth in the church? In our case now, for example, you might be in the retail sector, and you might say, I want to increase. If you own a petrol garage or a gasoline station or whatever, you might say, we want to increase our petrol sales by 2,000 liters a month. We'll increase our petrol sales. That's an output. But how? Well, by 2,000 liters by the end of June 2025, if that's the case. So now the next begs the next question: what must we do? So who must do what? I must do something, I must change my behavior in order to achieve an outcome. Or I must get people who have vehicles to change their behavior of driving to that store or that petrol station and now changing their routes to come to our petrol store, our petrol station, in order to put petrol in our station. Because if they do that, if we have 40 more cars or 40 more vehicles changing their behavior to come to us, we're going to achieve that 2,000 litre growth desire that we have. Now, what must we do in order to, what value must we add to the people that own vehicles that live in the area or drive past us that are not currently choosing to stop off at us? What value must we create? So who, the owner of the petrol station, must create value, so who must do what? What value must I create? Well, it could be a drop in petrol sales. It could be a free coffee with every time you fill your tank. It could be a free this. It could be reduced that. It could be, this is where the creative juices now start to flow. And this is where most business owners, most pastors, and I'm realizing in my own world, are not really seeing that total effect. We're going through the same motions week in, week out. But what's going to change the outcome is going to be this question that I'm asking us today. What must we do to change the behavior of people? Now, one of the definitions I read of OKRs is, what value must we create in order to change the behavior of our clients or customers or members in order to produce an outcome? So what you have to look at is an output-based culture. Is I am busy with output, with a meeting, but an outcomes-based culture is I'm busy, but the busyness of my time it must affect in a behavior change of myself firstly, or the client secondly, in order to affect that outcome. If it makes sense to you today, if you can get this. So ask yourself the question: who does what, and by how much or by when? So who must do what? Who must? Let me go back to the church. I remember I said earlier about the 200 example of the attendance growth. So who, the church, must do what by when? Well, we must maybe offer more training. Perhaps we're not seeing the growth because we're not seeing new people come to church. All right. So who? Me, the staff. What is the value that we must create as an organization? Training. After church in the week, maybe online, Zoom, offer more resource, speak more about it from the pulpit, have an event, whatever. And I'm not saying everything I'm saying is what you must do. I'm saying you must now sit and start to push and pull and start to think of creative ways in which we can say, let's move from just an output-based world into an outcomes-based world. And you'll see it now as well. The recent American elections, we saw the incumbent president of America form a department called DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, where the president of America, has now instructed a bunch of business owners to go into government worlds and to root out and look for all kinds of corruption and bad spending and et cetera, et cetera. So again, it's an output. But by when? Well, they want to save what? Notice they want to save $1 trillion off of the annual budget spending of the American government. So we want to see what? Corruption reduced, spending reduced by how much? By $1 trillion by when? Well, by June. Now, if they achieve it or don't achieve it is irrelevant. The fact is, because they had stated that the output is going to be to actually go and do all the dirty work. But the outcome is we would like to see $1 billion or $1 trillion, whatever it is, cut off the budget, the spending of the American government by June or by end of 2025 or by the end of the 4-year reign of the president, et cetera, et cetera. So I want you to start to see that if there's not an outcome or there's not a time and a result, we're never going to move from an output-based into an outcome-based. So who must do what and by how much? 30%, 15%, or by when? End of quarter one, end of quarter two. And these are the kind of things that I want to just stimulate with us today in this episode. And I want you to start to take note of and look at your own world. What does your own world look like currently? Would you say you are predominantly an output-based world where you are a busy leader, a busy business owner, a busy pastor, but you can't really say what you actually want to achieve, what outcome you specifically want to achieve, and by when. And if you can't, then you are merely going to go through the motions of remaining an output-based organization, and you're not really going to achieve any positive outcomes in order to, and here and there are outcomes that you might achieve. But what OKRs do, objectives versus key results, or objectives and key results. So you have a main objective, we want to achieve that. How are we going to achieve that? What are the key things? What are the key results that we must do? So we must, objective, grow our Sunday morning attendances by 200, example. What are the key results? What results? What are the keys, and what results do we want to achieve from our activity? And what behavior must we change in ourselves internally as an organization? And what behavior must we change of the members in the church in order to get them to possibly invite more people to church? So if we haven't got a healthy invite culture, that means their behavior is not responding to inviting people. So how do we get the members to change their behavior to bring more people to church, to hear the gospel, to get saved, so heaven can be populated and hell can be plundered? And this is how the approach we have to have. Not, we'd like to see our church grow by this year. Everyone wants to see growth. Everybody wants to see increase. But by how much and by when? So who does what by when? Who does what by how much? And I'm going to repeat myself in a few areas here today because I want you to get that as a business owner. For example, I spoke to a business owner recently who told me he's been blessed with so much business he can't even keep up with the blessing. And I'm grateful, and we thank God for that, and we celebrate that, and we applaud that. But the reality is, he says, it's like, I'm not even, haven't got time to think because I'm so busy. And yes, sure, influx of business is always healthy. But here's the question. So who must do what by when in order to enjoy the benefit of this? So we want to see work that is received by how much? We want to see work that is received, put out or done or completed, 50% quicker than currently by June this year. So now we have a measuring stick to work with, because what is causing us to get all this work is the blessing of God, marketing, sales, but how are we going to manage this in order to actually enjoy the benefit of it? So who does what by when? So now that organization is going to have to go back to the staff and say, listen, we got all this work, but we are so snowed under and we're not really being effective. We're busy, but we're not really being that effective. So what must we do as an organization to reduce the burden of 99 last minute pressure, or the customers taking their business away from us because of bad service, because over-promising, under-delivering? So instead of us just being grateful for the business, we now have to become streamlined and become more effective. So what's the outcome? Well, we want to see all work received, quoted, all work that's been quoted on, that's been accepted. We want to see that work executed and installed on the customer's premises within 7 working days of, quote, acceptance. So do you understand? Now it changes the ballgame. So now we can say, well, we got the work, but remember, our outcome is to have that work done within 7 days. So, well, that's impossible, because how do we do 57 jobs or 57 tasks? Well, again, who must do what by when? So now we have to have meetings internally, staff, members, owners. How do we get to that goal of 7 days? Now the creativity starts to function. And this is what I want to really just challenge you with today, is when you start to move from an output to an outcome-based mindset, you're going to start to see the results. You're going to start to see the effectiveness coming through a lot better, a lot more effectively, and you're going to have much better results. Now, when we talk about OKRs, objectives and key results, it's about results, but we have to change behaviors in ourselves, bad to good and good to better. And we have to change behaviors of the clients or the members from what? Bad to good and good to better. And this is the thought process that we have to have a look at. So what we found is that once we started implementing this and we started focusing on this, what you start to find is that everybody starts to not moan, but they start to justify their thought process or why it can't be done, or because they're so used to, let's say having 10 pastors on staff. Now you send these 10 pastors out from Monday to Saturday, hoping to grow those 200 attendances, hoping they all are being effective. But this one pastor, he might decide this week, well, I'm going to, talk to my people about finances. Another pastor might say, I'm going to talk to my people this week about commitment. Another pastor might feel, I'm going to talk to my about admin catch-up. And you'll notice that although they all have got outputs, they post photographs, they're showing social media, and everyone goes, but look here, the guys are having meetings. But look here, the guys are talking to their people. But look here, the guys are doing what they're supposed to do. However, come Sunday, same result. Next Sunday, a lot of output. Next Sunday, same result. So we're not seeing that growth. However, when we start to have objectives and key results, what it starts to do, it starts to give us a overriding main focus. Now, again, I said to you earlier, when we as a church in Cape Town, our main objective is to encompass our vision, mission, mandate is to be a city church of influence through the preaching of the gospel. Now, wide range, yes, that's our objective. We want to be a city church of influence through the preaching of the gospel. Now, how do we achieve that? Well, we believe to be a city church of influence with our key results is, number one, is we want to preach the gospel to 150 first-time visitors in our morning service. Let's assume that's what we want. Number two is we want to be 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 attendants in order to preach the gospel to people. Number three is we want to have 200 or 300 or 400 places of community or home cells where people can grow in their walk with Christ. Number four is we want to see our income grow by so much percentage or by so much rand value in order to be a city church of influence. And we also want to raise up 100 or 200 or 300 new leaders in order to assist with the growth of the church. So we narrowed ours down. Now, those are sort of overriding general ones I'm sharing with you, but we narrowed ours down to 5 key results. So to be a city church of influence by winning the lost, mending the nets, and building one church in many locations through the preaching of the gospel, we believe that to see that church of influence, we have to preach the gospel to, let's say, 200 new people on a Sunday. Plus, we want to preach the gospel to 2,000 people in attendance. We want to raise up new leaders, 100 new leaders, 200 new leaders, to be that church of influence. We want to have 200 places of community or 400 places of community, home cells, etc., and we want to have so much income coming in every month in order to be a church of influence. Now, that's overriding objective and key result. Now the question is, what value must we create, Carol 1, to preach the gospel to 150 first-time visitors every Sunday, all right? What value must we as an organization create in order to change the behavior of the members that are currently coming to church in order to see 150 new people every week come to church? Now, we must think that out. Is it training? Is it meetings? Is it announcements? Is it, marketing? Is it advertising? What is the thing? And I'm not going to give you an answer today, because the answer is not particularly what I'm trying to tell you today. It's about you must now go and think this out. So let's take a business, for example. We want to be the largest printing company in the city, servicing the city of Cape Town, for example. We want to be the largest, okay? We want to be the largest, we want to be the petrol station that, sells the most petrol in a month in the city. Whatever. Remember, you determining the objective. Now, let's go back to the printing company. So what must we do to be the largest printing company in Cape Town this year? Well, number one, we believe that we have to get 100 new quotes signed off every month. Okay, all right. So 100 new quotes signed off monthly. What must we do to get 100 new quotes? Well, we have to do this, this, and this. And suddenly now there is a clear, direct, focused line of attention. Secondly, we have to get 3 or 5 government tenders every quarter. I'm just using example now, meaning we want to be the largest printing company, but what is the key result? Well, the key result is 100 new quote sign-offs a month, 5 new government orders, plus also we want to have a turnaround time of less than 7 days per task on a signed-off quote. So there is a date, there is a time, and there is specific measurable outcome. I can measure it. Were those 20 tasks last week done within 7 days? Yes or no? So the answer must be yes or no, not maybe, I'm thinking. So did we get the 100 new clients this last month? Yes or no? No. Well, what caused it to be no? Well, let's go back to the table. Let's go and discuss again. Why? Because our objective is to be the largest printing company. But in order to achieve that, our key results are we need 100 new clients. What's stopping us from getting 100 new clients? Well, it could be too few sales reps, bad marketing campaigns, whatever. The reasons can be ending. But I want you to start to see that the minute you start to see your organization, your company, your church as a conversation around there's certain objectives we want to achieve, and to get those objectives, we have to fulfill certain key results. What are those key results? Well, we believe this and this and this. Now remember, they're not cast in stone. You're determining that. You could be right, you could be wrong. And we can change those if we see we're wrong. But the point is, you are setting measurable, focused, time-specific deadlines for an outcome. So we want to see 100 new clients signed off per month in order to become the largest printing company. We want to see 150 new first-time visitors every Sunday in order to, let's say, see 25% saved, which will then go towards a retention rate of X, which will then end up getting us closer to the 200 growth. Remember, we want to see 200 growth in our attendances. Now, you can pull this through to every avenue. Your home sales, we want to see 50 more home sales, okay? By when? By how much and by when? By 50, by when? By the end of the year, by June, by March, by February. For example, I want to lose some weight. Okay, great. I'm glad you want to lose some weight. But OKR or objective with a key result would be, I want to lose 10 kilograms of weight by the end of June 2025. All right, now that changes the whole focus. All right, so to lose 20 kilos, that means I've got to lose, or 10 kilos, I've got to lose 2 kilograms a month, assuming we're 6 months away or 5 months away. So what must I do? What information? Well, I've got to then enroll at a gym. I've got to change my eating. So I must see a nutritionist. I must see a personal trainer. I must change my behavior. My behavior of eating bad food is causing me to pick up the weight. Now I've got to change my behavior. Remember, we're talking about what? Adding value to your organization, adding value to your life by changing your behavior to achieve an outcome. So the behavior change is the key, and this is the difference. You've got to change your behavior in order to see that output becoming an outcome. So we're talking about the key to effective leadership is having a mindset as a leader of not just having a lot of output. We must go and install that today. We must go and make sure we get that task started. We must make sure. And all those outputs and the work will be started. And perhaps you might get to that client today or not. Maybe you might install that or not. You might see the client or not, because it doesn't matter. It's not time-based. It's just out there in the open. And when you find yourself, again, you've had a very busy year, but you can't really measure how effective and what the outcomes have been. And this is what I want to really challenge you with. So when you go and read the book OKRs, or Measure What Matters, is the book, the name of the book called Measure What Matters, by John Doerr, who is a shareholder in Google. And then the other book is Who Does What by When. I'm not too sure of the authors, but I'll put the link to the book in the description. So I hope you're getting something in today's episode. There's a lot of information I'm sharing today, but I want you to get one thing today, is that an output-based is task-driven, it's activity driven, but an outcome culture is behavior change, adding value that's going to change behavior that's going to produce an outcome. So the only reason why you're not seeing growth in your attendances in a pastor's case is the behavior of the members hasn't changed. The only reason you're not seeing growth in your business in sales is because the customer's behavior of choosing you as a supplier, as a company of choice, hasn't changed. How do I change the behavior of a potential client out there in order to get them to choose my organization? Because if I can change their behavior through marketing, through cold calling, through whatever it is you need to do. So I don't want to tell you what you need to do. I want to challenge you to think, what is the objective? What is the thing you want to aim for? What behavior must change from yourself and from the client in order to achieve that outcome, and by when? So I want to lose 10 kilos by the end of June, all right? So my behavior of bad eating must become good. How am I going to do that? Well, get a nutritionist, get an accountability partner, do an online survey, go for a medical test, join a weight loss program, join a gym, whatever it is. So the behavior that wasn't there before must now be affected in order to get an outcome. And this is where I guarantee you're going to start to see outcomes and results a lot quicker. Now, what do we know? If I get on the scale, in order to lose 2 kilograms a month, 5 months, 10 kilos. I want to lose 10 kilos is the main objective. I've got to lose 2 a month. So if I break that down into weeks, 4 weeks in a month, I've got to lose, let's say, 750 or 500. I've got to lose 500 grams per week in order to get to 2 kilos in a month, in order to get to 10 kilos in 5 months. So when I got on the scale on Monday this week, all right, I weighed X amount. When I got on the scale the Monday the following week, did the scale drop by 500 grams? Yes or no? Remember, the outcome is purely yes or no. No. Why? Well, A, B, C, D, because I didn't change my behavior. I'm still eating bad. Or the nutritionist says that the second week I should see the effect. Okay, let's go to week 2. Now, we should be a kilo down in week 2. All right, I got on the scale. 750 grams. Okay, so I'm still moving. It's working, but maybe not to the total effect of my 1 kilo, but it doesn't matter. I can measure it. And now I can go and adapt again in week 3 because the 750 that I actually lost versus the kilo I wanted to lose, I can measure that difference. Or, no, I got on the scale, it went up by 500 grams. Well, clearly, my behavior is not changing and I'm not going to get the result. So guess what? Now, okay, I've been lying to myself. I haven't really changed anything. I'm just fooling myself. But what an objective without a key result will do is I want to lose weight. So, well, this week I had a good week, I had a bad week. It doesn't matter if the scale went up or down because you haven't got a measurable behavior change outcome. So this is what I want to leave us with this month. And I know it's a lot of information and I know you might be going, wow, but I want you to think. I want to improve my finances. Good, that's great. Or I want to get out of debt fully. I want to get out of credit card debt totally. I want to have my credit cards paid off by June 2025. Okay, great. That's a good objective. And what are the key results? Well, to stop, to cut up my credit cards. Okay, there we go. We cut them up. All right. Number 2, to pay double the repayment owed for the following 6 months. Okay. Number 3, you get my drift. So now you're starting to put measurable, behavior changes. I've cut the credit card up. I've doubled the payment, and I'm not spending on the credit card anymore. And did you drop that payment? Yes or no? So this is what you start to see the powerful effect of OKRs. And I want to say to you as a pastor, what are the areas of the frustration in your church? I want to grow my church. Well, everybody wants to grow their church. By how much and by when? And then who must do what and by when? Or by how much, depending what you want to achieve. So in our case, in closing today, we want to be 20 business home sales for, let's assume, I'm using example now. We want to be 20 business sales in Cape Town. Okay, off we go. Comes December, how many are you? No, 4. All right, is it good or bad? I don't know. It's like just, well, we said 20, but we're not too sure. Yeah, okay. So that'll be a general, just what most people do, an output. So we tried hard. We had business meetings, but it didn't really work, right? We want to be 20 business sales, all right, by the end of 2025 in 5 regions in the city. Okay. Will we achieve that? Doesn't matter. But I know that I've got 20, I've got 5 regions, and I've got a deadline, December. Now I must say, for that to become a reality, I want to do 4 a quarter, all right, or 5 a quarter. So comes the end of the quarter's 3 months. So for 5, I want to do basically 1. I must plant 1 or 2 a month to reach that goal. End of month 1, did you plant the 1? Yes or no? Now I can measure it. Month 2, yes or no? And I can adapt along the way. So if I didn't get the 1 or the 2 plants and to get to the 5, to get to the 20, I can measure along the way, but I can bring changes. Remember, because we want to change the behavior of ourselves first as the organization. We have to bring value. We have to create the value, but our behavior has to change in order to get a measurable outcome. Versus what behavior must change of the customer or the member. So now I must do a business cell leaders training. Okay, so when? Well, Tuesday nights, for example. So I want you to start to see these kind of measurable, aligned, outcome-based thought processes. And I want to challenge you. Go back to your world and ask yourself the question, can you today say that you know what you want to grow by, how much, and by when in your organization, turnover-wise? Maybe it's new client sign-ups, maybe it's new members, maybe it's people serving in ministries, maybe it's in the youth, it's to be X amount of youth by so much in 5 schools by when. Maybe it's buses for students. We want to be 3 buses by the end of the quarter. We currently 1. Okay, what must happen? Well, we must raise money for the buses. Okay, how? Well, so you understand when you get specific and you get time-bound and you get amount-bound, suddenly now the rules change. It's not just an output-based world, but now it goes from an output-based world into an outcome-based world. And what's the bottom line? Think. Use your common sense and think. And so I'm really hoping today that there is a shift in just a bit of thought, going, wow, I never thought of it like that. Wow, in my world, we can't do that. Why? Because you need to shift your mindset. The culture has to shift. And so lastly, what we do is as well, we do weekly what we call CFRs, customer feedback recognition sessions. So in our case, it'll be staff, feedback recognition sessions. So communication feedback recognition. So we want to communicate with the staff, the pastors, and we want to communicate also back to the members and the structures what is happening. So CFRs, communication, the F feedback, and R recognition. So the communication is, this is where we're at, this is what we achieved, and that's the feedback. And then there is the recognition is well done, or hey, we can't yet celebrate, we've still got to change a few more things. So CFRs are vital. We have them on Mondays, and we sit down and we say, well, let's communicate. How was that 100 for the 150 first-time visitors? How was that 200 growth? How was that, whatever it is that you set out to achieve? Remember, behavioral change, time-bound, time-specific result. But on a CFR, we measure what we're communicating, what we saw on the Sunday. We're giving feedback to each other, and we're either recognizing the positive change or the negative impact. It went down or went up, yes or no. And then what must we do now again this week to go and retrain again or change what we're doing? Or because remember, we're not, in order to get the result, some behavior has to change. And either we're doing it wrong or the way we're training it's wrong, but somewhere along the line, something's got to change. And when it does change, guess what? Incredible things happen. And we're starting to see amazing things as well. It brings you aligned, brings you focus. And when somebody wants to go over there, what about going to, starting a prison ministry? No. Is it going to align with our 5 key results? No. Okay, wait for that. We'll get to that later. But right now, we want to achieve these 5 things for this quarter. So I hope you've got something this episode. I know it might have been a bit of a different episode. We're talking about measuring what matters over time. We're talking about objectives and key results. We're talking about looking at an output-based world versus an outcome-based world. We're talking about changing behaviors, adding value that changes behaviors that achieves an outcome. Where an output-based is just going through the motions of doing a meeting and, posting a social media post. But can we measure that? And we have to measure what matters. And when you measure what matters, everything falls in line. So I hope you've got something today. I hope this makes sense. Listen to it again. And the two books that I referred to earlier was Measure What Matters by John Doerr, and secondly, Who Does What by When. Go search it out. It's an OKR book. And if you're not using OKRs, don't let it freak you out. It's a journey, it's a process. Research shows it takes 2 to 3 to 4 quarters before your staff and everybody or your customers start to get used to the changes. So don't quit. If you are thinking of maybe, having a little bit of a thought process in this direction, if you're happy with what you're doing and you're slapping it at the park and you are happy with your ways you're running your organization, come on, keep doing that. I'm not saying this is the only way. I'm saying this is another way of measuring outputs versus outcomes. But my prayer for you today is that you'll, add to your business acumen, new wisdom, new knowledge, new understanding. May this be an amazing month of February as we as a move are believing God for multiplication. May this be a year of incredible multiplication. And I'm hoping that if you listen to what I had to say today and take a few nuggets and a few thoughts and you apply it to your world, that it'll lead to massive multiplication in your world. So have a great, great month. Have a great, great week. And share this with your world. Remember, it's free and we only have to help people. Leader Breeder Platform is a platform to help people, business owners, pastors, leaders around the world discover the leadership voices so we can create more value in our world. So be blessed, and I'll see you next month in March for our next month's episode. Amen.
Thank you for joining us here at Leader Breeder. Make sure to subscribe to the channel to catch the next episode every month.